I think it went very well. I believe the truth came out on the factual circumstances of that day that a lot of people on the First Nation didn't realize. I think we put together a service to the First Nation and I think to the general public. We tried to put as much ceremony as we could in this, as well as our legislative responsibilities. So, we had sweat lodges, we had pipe ceremonies, we had smudges, we had elders here. The TP was outside right next. So I think this has been kind of a first for us we've really expanded, I guess, the scope of an inquest in Saskatchewan. We've really pushed the boundaries. We almost were sidelining up to an inquiry type of an event rather than just an inquest. And I'm very proud of that. I think we've worked with the families. You could hear from what the families have said. Sure, they might have wanted some more recommendations. But by and large, we saw some healing here. We saw people hugging. We saw people. The ice got broken, I believe, for this community, for families that had never seen each other since, that didn't want to see each other. And here they were. They were brought together in Melfort, Saskatchewan. They got to meet each other again. And I believe that's a real stepping stone for the community to heal.
On, I guess, the idea of scope, we did hear from some people say, these issues at play here are really big. Intergenerational trauma, addictions on First Nations and off. Do you think an inquest was the right choice to try to tackle this, or should it have been bigger?
I certainly believed, and I talked to my minister about this just after the incident. If we were to look at an inquiry, it would probably take 4 to 5 years. We all see how long inquiries take to get put into place. In Saskatchewan, we're lucky we can have a coroner's inquest. And within a year and a half, we brought this inquest together. 2.5 weeks, I believe that we brought out the whole story that happened that day and a lot of the issues that led up to that and some recommendations. So I believe that we've really met the challenge for this, not as a coroner service, but I think as a province, to try and get the truth out and bring some comfort to the families. And I believe with the national inquiry, we'd been waiting 4 or 5 more years for this to happen, and things get forgotten. This was still fresh in everybody's mind. We were able to bring some good results to them, and I really think this was the right move to make in our province.
What have you learned from the process of putting this inquest together that you might bring to other inquests going forward in the future in Saskatchewan?
I think we'll try to bring more ceremony in if it happens to be Indigenous people that are involved with it. But we are bound by the legislation that we have in Saskatchewan right now, and you have to remember, this is a coroner's inquest. It's not a public inquiry. They can only go on the evidence that they've heard here over the last 2.5 weeks, and it has to be focused on the individuals that were involved in this. So it's really hard for a coroner's inquest to expand on some of these really big global occurrences that we're facing as a country.
Speaking to scope, we had 29 recommendations.
Yes.
Where does that land? Is that kind of a large amount of recommendations for?
That's very large. Usually we have maybe 8 to 10 recommendations. We've had some inquests as high as 20 recommendations. Since I've been the chief coroner, this is certainly the largest amount of recommendations we've had at any inquest.
After this, we were just speaking with family. The steps will be sent, contacting the departments. But how do you follow how successful these recommendations will be, or how the department's response?
Once all the recommendations are written up to come back to our office here, I'll be sending a letter to each agency that's been involved with the recommendations, asking for a reply and what they're going to do with those recommendations. In almost all circumstances, we usually receive a reply back within 3 or 4 months of what that agency is going to do with those recommendations, and then those are all filed, and all that will be put up on our website so people can see what the recommendations are, and they can see what the affected agencies are going to do with those recommendations.
Do you check back on this periodically?
Once we get the response back from those agencies, then that's as far as we can go as a coroner service. We have no authority to actually enforce any of the recommendations.
Do you think that needs to change, the authority to enforce?
I think it's pretty hard because sometimes there are really good recommendations that you can actually put into place, and some of them are almost impossible to put into place. I mean, they sound good till you really get down to the nuts and bolts of actually implementing them. So for us to say to somebody, we can't force somebody to do something that's impossible. But I can say by and large, from the government agencies that we deal with mainly, right, because that's what's affected with a lot of these, we get good results back from them, and we get good solid answers of what they're going to do with those recommendations.
I don't know if you'll weigh in, but did any recommendations stand out to you?
Not specifically. I take them all as a global kind of a response. There's a lot of parties that were involved with these recommendations, and I really feel, I think, quite pleased that there's such a wide breadth, whether it's Corrections Service of Canada, whether it's the RCMP, whether it's the James Smith Cree Nation leadership. So, I mean, it's really hit the old gamut of people that should be looking at some of these things that affected what happened on James Smith on that day. Okay?
Thank you.
Piece of cake?